On the west side of the Rock River in Rockford, Illinois, William and Julia Barnes built their beautiful home at the end of the 19th century. Today, the upper floors are used for administration offices for the Burpee Museum of Natural History. And according to the staff, some of the original inhabitants of the building still occupy the home they loved so much. Welcome to an audio version of an original article by Kathi Kresol, operator of Haunted Rockford Paranormal Events, Rockford, Illinois. This audio presentation is entitled Barnes Mansion Echoes from the Past and contains the 2017 story of the same name. The story originally appeared in Haunted Rockford, Illinois by Kathi Kresol. This audio article is produced by Haunted Rockford. There is a beautiful home that has stood on the west side of the Rock River since 1893. It was built by William Fletcher Barnes for his family. The Barnes family sold the house to the Rockford Park District in 1937, and it was used for the park's offices for several years before the second and third floors became the Burpee Museum of Natural History in 1942. Today, the beautiful building is once again used as administration offices for the museum. The museum was thrilled when it acquired the building, but it had no idea what else it got in the bargain. According to the staff, some of the former inhabitants of the building are still occupying the home they loved. The house is located right on the banks of the Rock River. It is also down the street from Beatty Park, which has several Native American effigy mounds. According to the website Genealogy Trails, there were hundreds of mounds located up and down the Rock River. Both of these conditions, along with the limestone that sits under most of downtown Rockford, make the Barnes Mansion a prime spot for paranormal activity. Another theory that the Barnes home fits is the idea that people can leave imprints on certain locations, especially in times of heightened emotions, good or bad. This is evident when you visit historical places that seem able to almost transport you back into the past. These places, like the Barnes Mansion, have layers of history, some ancient, as in the case of the Native Americans, but some more recent. The Barnes family suffered many tragedies while they lived in the house, and these, according to some paranormal theories, also help make a place more apt to become haunted. The staff at Burpee has had several unexplained incidents inside the building. The sounds of long-forgotten music have been heard in the halls of the home. A former employee whose office was on the first floor of the three-story building shared an incident she experienced in the house during an interview. She stated that she was in her office on the first floor late one evening when she heard music that seemed to be coming from a different floor. The second floor of the building also contains offices, and the employee assumed one of her coworkers must still be in the building, listening to a radio. She finished her work and decided to check to see if her coworker was ready to depart so they might leave together. The music was definitely coming from a room on the second floor, and though there was no light on in the office, the employee decided to check the room anyway. She lifted her foot to step into the room, and the music suddenly stopped. As she stood there in the darkened doorway, she felt a cold draft blow by her, chilling her. She turned to look back down the hallway and felt as though someone had stepped behind her. She decided that it was time to leave and rushed back down to her office to collect her things. Later, she described the music as not from this time period. William Barnes's family moved to Rockford in the 1850s. William, along with several brothers, created a business to manufacture woodworking machines. They were very successful and sold their products not only in Rockford but worldwide. The business proved to be so lucrative that even during the Panic of 1893, it continued to expand when many others were forced to close down. When time came to build his growing family a home, William decided to build a showplace that he and his wife, Julia, could be proud to call their own. Since their business was building woodworking machines, he decided to fill it with beautiful woodwork. William was a good businessman, and he hired many of the recently unemployed carpenters to complete the unique woodwork pieces he planned for his home. The large house has 15 rooms, a turret and hand-carved cherry paneling in the foyer, reception area, and first-floor hallway. The house was considered one of the finest houses in Rockford, and many thought that the Barnes family seemed to lead golden lives. Unfortunately, that all would change. William and his wife Julia had 4 children during their marriage, 2 daughters, Catherine and Amy, who were said to be as beautiful as their mother, and two sons, Joseph and William Fletcher Jr., called WF by his family. Joseph took after his father and would follow in his footsteps. WF took a different route in life and became passionate about automobiles when they arrived on the scene. He ordered one of the first cars ever delivered to Rockford. WF went against William's wishes and faced being disinherited when he decided to become a race car driver. William eventually forgave his son and helped him finance one of the first car dealerships in Rockford. William and Julia loved all of their children, but William had a special bond with his son Joseph. Joseph left Rockford after high school to continue his education in engineering at Cornell College in Iowa. After his education, Joseph returned to Rockford to work next to his father and uncles in the drafting department of the business. He was such a hard-working young man that he quickly rose to vice president of the company. Joseph was respected by all who knew him. In 1902, Joseph married Adeline Stewart, and the couple later had two children. By all accounts, the future could not have been brighter for the Barnes family. All that would quickly end, however. In 1905, tragedy struck the family when Joseph died unexpectedly from typhoid. Joseph's funeral was held in the home on North Main Street. It is this tragedy that started a downward spiral for the family. It's also this event that might have caused some of the paranormal incidents later reported by staff. It was customary at the time of Joseph's death for the funeral to be held in the family home. Joseph's body was placed in a room in the basement in preparation for the service. The basement area of the house is the focus of many claims of paranormal incidents. Staff and visitors have experienced the feeling of being watched all throughout this floor. They have also reported being overwhelmed by a sense of anxiety or sadness. By all accounts, Joseph's death devastated the entire Barnes family. William was especially affected by the death and seemed to lose interest in the business. He soon sold his portion of the family business to H.L. Pratt. Psychics Paul Smith and Sarah Bowker also state that there may be another reason why the Barnes house carries such a bad vibration in the basement. During the early days of the Burpee Museum, one of the more unusual displays on exhibit was a complete skeleton of a Native American that was supposed to be from this region. Paul and Sarah claimed that this would definitely leave an imprint in the house. The practice of displaying the bodies of Native Americans is no longer conducted by the museum. The family suffered another unbelievable blow when their grandson, who was named after their son Joseph, was killed in 1910. The 7-year-old was staying with his maternal grandparents while his mother was on her honeymoon. Mrs. Adeline Stewart Barnes married her second husband, Archie Catlin of Kansas, in her parents' home less than 24 hours before the horrible accident. Joseph and his cousin were downtown with Adeline's sister and were apparently told to wait for her in the car. Joseph was described as a lively little boy who was easily bored. He decided to crawl out of the car, not realizing the danger. Witnesses stated later that they saw Joseph leave the car and were horrified to see another car bearing down on him. Several people yelled, but there was nothing they could do but watch helplessly as the boy darted out in the street and the vehicle ran him down. It was determined that the driver could not have avoided the little boy. Joseph was laid to rest next to his father at Greenwood Cemetery. Another tragedy occurred when William's lovely wife, Julia, was part of a camping trip to Manitowish, Wisconsin. Julia was walking in the woods and was injured when a hunter accidentally shot her. She took most of the charge to the side of her face. One of the shots passed through her eye. Julia was carried to camp by her son, W.F. Barnes, Jr., who then accompanied her to Chicago. Julia would not tell authorities who shot her, stating only that it was an accident. Julia would recover from her wounds, but she suffered from chronic pain for the rest of her life. She was no longer able to attend the lavish parties that she once hosted. Julia passed away in 1922, but according to psychics, she still stands looking out the second-floor windows of her beautiful home. In 1928, William became ill and was bedridden before he died from a stroke on December 30th, 1930. He was survived by his son, W.F. Barnes, and his daughter, Amy Barnes Lane. Amy would decide to sell the house to the Rockford Park District in 1937. Some years back, Haunted Rockford was hosting a tour through the building, and paranormal investigator Dale Kazmarek attended. He was using a device called an ovilus. In simplified terms, an ovilus is a machine used by ghost hunters that allegedly modulates changes in the environment and converts them into speech. This allows the spirits to communicate directly with the investigator. Shortly after turning on the device in the basement, the words, "It hurts, you asshole," came through quite clearly. Other staff members who work in the building tell of the times when they have closed up the building and shut off all the lights before setting the alarm. They walk out to the parking lot only to realize that all of the lights have been turned on again, though no one was left in the building. At first, the staff would go back in and shut off the lights, but the lights would be back on by the time they reached their cars. Now, they simply leave them on. At another Haunted Rockford hosted public paranormal investigation in the mansion, while the investigation team was on a preliminary tour to decide where equipment should be placed, several of the female members felt as if someone was touching their hair. The team leader, also a woman, heard someone sigh in her ear. She felt as well as heard this. There is a large closet on the second floor, and people have claimed to feel fear and anxiety by the door leading into this closet. According to psychics, this feeling is caused by a man that was once employed by the Barnes family. Apparently, this man would wait for the young maids or nannies to go to the room to put something away, and then he would step in behind them, trapping them in the room. He would grope and fondle them against their will, causing them to become very upset. He would threaten them by telling them he would get them fired if they told. This was a bad man, psychic Sarah Bowker emphasized. There have also been reports of shadows moving around on the second and third floors of the house. These have been seen by staff as well as visitors. There is another room on the third floor that seems to be disturbing to certain people. It's a strange little room that has a sink and might have been used as a staff lounge or a workroom during the museum days. Several people that entered that room on the night of the investigation felt a sense of vertigo when stepping across the threshold into this small room. They complained of being dizzy, short of breath, and very anxious. Whether it is a combination of certain conditions or the rich history of the house, the Barnes Mansion is clearly a unique place where the lines that separate the present and the past become blurry. The beautiful building still showcases the wonderful skill of the builders who constructed it, and the love of the owners for their home shines through the entire house as much today as it did when the Barneses proudly entertained there. Though no children play here anymore and some of the rooms are vacant of any furnishings, the Barnes Mansion still echoes with the sounds of the family members who continue to roam these halls. This is the end of our audio article. Thanks for listening.